Ye money for an opera house.
Aye, in Edinburgh,
52 million to London. I tell you why, you don't know what Scotland is.
You can go to any labour exchange in Scotland to do.
And you'll get a job.
And you'll get a job on a continent.
We're not up like in Glasgow. We're able to make our livelihood here. We shouldn't need to go to Germany and France and Sweden or even go to Greece. Who wants to go to Greece? It's better up and do there for a football match.
He's trying to pay up another 1,000 at the end of next month.
I'm sorry for men who've been in the other days, that's what's funny with it. Especially elderly men. And their apprentices.
The long-haired ones, here's that, you'll be getting them.
Tonight, World in Action producer Gus MacDonald goes back to the Glasgow shipyards.
This yard used to belong to the Stevens family. Now it's part of the Upper Clyde Shipbuilders Group, which has just gone bankrupt. They don't build ships in this yard anymore. They just prefabricate sections for the other 3 yards in the group. This film shows some of the things that have been happening in Clydeside since the workers took over. But first I'd better declare an interest. I worked as a fitter in these yards for 7 years. I went back simply to find out what the men I used to work with felt about it all. And if you have trouble with the Glasgow accents, just remember that we've had to learn your English all the way from Harold Steptoe to Hilda Baker.
There used to be about 2,000 men on that side and 2,000 men on this side, but there's nothing now, it's just a derelict thing.
I don't know what I hope it's going to be as for between Govan and Lenthouse. Honestly, I don't know. I think it's really a disgrace to see this river. As a matter of fact, I sit in an office here and I watch the rabbits run the verse instead of men working. That's the way I feel about it.
It's been the best yard I've ever worked in. Stevie's a Lenthouse.
What do you do, Jimmy?
I've got rheumatoid arthritis. I got this job because I couldn't work at the plating any longer, which I'd like to be working at the plating today. I'd rather work on my hands as work on my brain. My hands I've always worked with. I worked with for 30 odd years. That's why I'd like to work on my hands. To let them get the ships built again in this river.
The Mary and the Lizzie, they were made right here. But you'll never see the likes of them, I fear. They were the finest ever sailed the sea. They were built by the hands of men like me. Thank you, Dad, for all your skill. But the Clyde is a river that shall no stand still. You did gay well, but we'll do more. Make way for the finest of them all, Q4.
I know, it went all over the place, didn't it? Yeah. I think it's marvellous.
We'll burn and cut and shape and bend.
Big Feather's tour of the old John Brown's yard in Clydebank is significant. Once it became clear that the workers were not going to do anything wild, the trade union chiefs moved to support the work-in. Each week the stewards have to raise enough money to pay the wages of the sacked men who are still working, so the backing of the trade union chiefs is vital. But there have been other visitors from London. Ministers John Davis and Sir John Eden have already been to Glasgow to meet the rebel stewards. This visit by the Prime Minister last Friday underlines the seriousness of the situation. All the big factories in Clydeside stopped work to support the demonstration against the closure of UCS. There are 40,000 unemployed men in Glasgow. That's 1 man in 10. And things look like getting worse before they get better. So 70,000 marchers came from all over Scotland to Glasgow for what must have been the biggest demonstration ever seen in the city. If you break the yards in Glasgow at any time, you're breaking a tradition. But if you break the yards when there are 25 unemployed men chasing every available job in Glasgow, then you revive a lot of old memories. And up here, they're usually bad ones.
Before the war, that when a ship went down the berth in the Clyde, that always meant people were laid off. That was a term in their day.
For a period.
And we always liked to be working in this place. Nowadays, Clyde built has nothing got to do with it at all, I would say, although a lot of people still say Clyde built. As long as we're working and we're able to keep our families and the best. That's what we want. We want our families to have the best that we didn't get in the days gone by.
Scotland is so worried about jobs that I've even seen Scottish Tories on the same protest platforms as Scottish communists. It's sometimes said that when the English economy sneezes, Scotland catches a cold. Easier HP terms may sell more coloured tellies, but they don't immediately make people want to buy ships or heavy machinery. Factories up here are closing, work has been taken to England, and even the new American-owned companies are cutting back in response to their own recession at home. And Scotland is beginning to feel that she's just become an expendable economic colony of England and America.
See, as we told the government, I know, that people of Scotland are after porridge now. We're on to ham and eggs and we're not going back to porridge.
The UCS needed a £6 million subsidy to survive, but the government reckoned that this was one lame duck that would never make it and refused to pay. Labour leaders argue that the UCS was in the way to viability and that its big debts were inherited from the old inefficient private yards. The workers refused to accept the shutdown and took over the gates. But it was never, as was first reported, a revolutionary experiment in workers' control.
Most of us are doubtful about the possibility of having a pocket of workers' control in a sea of, for the want of a better word, we'll call a private enterprise society. The form of the struggle really was dictated by the objective circumstances in which we found ourselves.
The action of the shipyard men caught the imagination of the local public and of the world's press and television. It had been calculated to do just that.
A sort of sit-in strike had its merits, but then we considered its impact publicly. And then said, well, look, what is it we're fighting for? We're fighting for the right to work. And what better way of expressing that demand than continuing to work, no matter what anyone says.
Labour leaders came up to argue that the Conservatives had a long-standing grudge against UCS because it was part publicly owned, and that the government planned and provoked its closure. The workers believed that too, but most of them had come to hear Jimmy Reid, a communist fitter from John Brown's. This used to be called the Red Clyde, and Reid speaks a language which commands an audience.
In the last analysis, workers can only depend on themselves, on their fellow workers, on the unity of their class. Those, and there are those in society, that try to diminish our self-confidence as workers, that try to inculcate in ourselves a self-belittlement of our own ability and our own intelligence, who try and inculcate into us almost from childhood that we're here to be ruled and somebody else is here to rule us. The workers of Britain are getting off their knees, getting on their feet, asserting their dignity, asserting their abilities, and asserting in a disciplined and determined way that they will have a say in the decision-making of this country, and that we will shape our own destinies. I want to tell you this. We understand through our contacts that this Friday 63 staff and 104 manual workers will be declared redundant, so the liquidator thinks in the UCS. They'll be at their work on Monday.
The pace of work in shipyards was recently reckoned to be only 20 or 30% that of the rest of British industry. You could sometimes spend days or even weeks waiting about for work. The men blamed bad management, and the bosses blamed restrictive union practices. Either way, it's a complex and very heavy industry, which for the most part has successfully defied the science of time and motion study. The UCS men claim a good record for increasing productivity and reducing demarcation, but it wasn't good enough for the government.
Pray silence for the Prime Minister.
The failure of Upper Clyde shipbuilders has been, I know, an immense shock to this part of the country where unemployment is already so high. I'm not going to rake over the embers of the past or try to apportion blame or responsibility. What we have to do, and have had to do ever since we were told of this situation, is to deal with it as it now is. The committee of experts which was appointed to look into Upper Clyde affairs concluded that the company was not and could not be made viable. The reasons for this are complex. Some of you will have studied them in detail, but the conclusion was inevitable. It simply would not be a sensible use of economic and human resources to go on pouring public money into such an enterprise. That would be a policy of desperation, not a policy of hope.
The 1960s were certainly pretty desperate years for shipbuilding on the upper reaches of the Clyde. 4 Clyde shipyards went out of business, and the big Fairfield yard almost joined them. 3 years ago, the remaining yards merged to form Upper Clyde Shipbuilders. International shipbuilding is a cutthroat business, and even the Japanese and Swedes now have financial problems, but UCS had money trouble from the start when they got £5.5 million from the Labour government in 1968. The following year, 3 more loans were given, and in the end, the public money paid out to keep UCS afloat totaled nearly £25 million. The Conservatives took a different line with UCS, and this year, Yarrow's yard was allowed to leave the group. Then in June, UCS was refused a further loan of £6 million and declared bankrupt. The sudden end of UCS was a shock to the men in the yards. In the last year, they had almost doubled productivity, although the labour force had been cut. And UCS also had orders for ships worth £90 million. But UCS debts totaled £32 million, and the liquidator now has the job of finishing the ships under construction, sacking 6,000 men and regrouping the remaining 2,500 into a new company.
We hope shortly to announce the appointment of those who would constitute the management of a new company for the Govan and Lindhouse yards. We have already said that we shall be ready to give the new company some financial support. We hope the support from private capital may also be forthcoming. If the new company is to be given a good start in terms of assuring the continuance of existing production and of securing new orders, then it will need to get on quickly with the work which lies ahead. I cannot overemphasize that point. Despite this, there will inevitably be some redundancies, both at UCS and elsewhere in the area.
I received a letter in the house Thursday night when I went home, and I was really disappointed. It was unexpected. I was hoping and praying that it wouldn't happen to me anyway, you know, and it wouldn't happen to anybody. But anyway, when I went in the house, she said, well, I want some soup for you. I said, a letter, that was the first question I asked. She says, aye. I said, don't buy it with the soup. I said, don't even buy it with the dinner. That's how I felt.
So I'd ask you, when you get your lot here, or whatever payment they give you, as soon as you collect it, go back into work. I've told the foreman that he's expecting you back in, so when you go back, report to him. He'll detail jobs to everyone else. Okay, lads?
At Stevens, Willie McInnes collects the cards of the first batch of men laid off. But the sacked men will continue to build ships, and the stewards must find the money to pay their wages each week. With nearly 1,000 men already paid off and another 5,000 to go, the wage bill for the work-in could become crippling. But not everyone is happy about the labour movement paying sacked men to build ships for nothing for a government liquidator.
You made a damn fool of yourselves by paying for your jobs. But no work fire's done it.
Oh, well, I'd rather pay 10 bob
than
go on the brew.
Just a minute.
Been running a good campaign.
We're trying now to bring them up to a living standard with a background of paying all the time. Is there no other answer to it?
If my 10 bob is helping to save the industry, I'm quite willing to pay 10 bob. Think of the people that's not in the industry at all that might be earning 14 and 15 pound a week. Their shop stewards have convinced them that it would be better to pay a levy. They might be paying 5 or 6 shillings a week a levy and to help us to keep our job. And yet, there's men who have been paid off here. They have been paid off. And their books are lying in there. The shop stewards are employing them. And the shop stewards are giving them £25 a week. And yet there's people earning 14 and 15 pound a week paying levies to help them to get a 25
under a second-class stamp, and if any man gets killed in this yard under a second-class stamp, he doesn't get one bloody penny insurance.
About 3/4 of the sacked men come back to work on the Monday, but the first men paid off were still shocked and a bit humiliated.
Oh, it's a heavy blow. It's a very heavy blow because it's the only thing that I really am capable of and know. I know everything about it. And to pay me off would well just throw me in the scrap heap, you know. That's what it would be. That's what it would mean to me. Because I couldn't imagine myself brushing streets or anything like that, or lifting rubbish bins up or anything like that. This is my job. I'm come out of school into this kind of carry on.
The loyalty to the yards is very strong. Surveys show that while workers might move from yard to yard to follow the work, they seldom left the shipbuilding industry if they could help it. There is a sense of space and freedom inside the yards, which men in a production line would envy. There's also a lot of spirit and individuality. People don't seem dominated by their jobs, and there are strong family traditions. That might help explain why the showdown in jobs happened here.
Well, I've got a father and 3 brothers. They're all platers. That's in shipbuilding. And it's their life as well. And it's all they know, more or less, like, you know.
You think you're going to win this fight?
I think with a certainty.
We're very happy, the management of the Ashfield Graham Stadium, tonight to give all the gate proceeds to the UCS Fighting Fund. May we wish the boys and the Upper Clyde shipyards every success in the constant struggle here for full employment, and here's hoping that whatever we may manage to give them, we can help them in some respects. Thank you very much.
Especially at my age, how could you go and get retrained at any job?
Yeah.
Plus, maybe I could get a job maybe in the TV.
Why doesn't
something a good job in the TV?
One day, the teacher came in and told us that they were wanting, you know, apprentices in here in the Fairfield. Well, I went to him and tell the old man, you know. Well, just about 16 at the time. And he says, well, what do you want to be? I says, I don't know. Well, he says, there's one thing you're not going to be as a cocker. Because he says, I've been a cocker. It's my father, like, and my grandfather. And what hard other bloody days, you know, they got was peanuts. So he says, you can be an engineer, he says, make something of yourself. So I sat at my time when I was 16 and finished it. Then after I was finished, I went to sea for a while. And here I am, back in there, shipyards again. And been up and down the Clyde and all over the place. So...
You think you got much further than your father or your grandfather?
Well, I believe I have.
My father, he was a river, and his cousin was a foreman caller on the yard they worked in. And the only place I could get a job was my father speaking to his cousin to get me to start serving my time as a caulker. Naturally, I didn't know what the job was until I in, but once I got to the job during a year, and as far as noise is concerned, it doesn't annoy you when you're working the machine. It doesn't annoy you. You don't hear it. You don't hear it, of course.
Annoys us doing a bit.
I mean, annoys everyone around about, we know that, but it doesn't annoy the actual man using the machine. Not that I ever use it much, I'll be quite candid now, but But anyway...
Did it not make you deaf, though?
Deaf? The only time I'm deaf when MD asks me to buy a drink. That's the only time I'm deaf. Because, as I say, there you were with that machine, when you were wiring in and the noise and everything, you see, you were a big shot. You were doing this and doing that. You were a man. You even got to the stage that during the time when you used to have the red lead in the ships, I've still got red lead, but not to the same extent. Even red lead, you put it in your bonnet. You put it in your bonnet walking into the air, you see? Just so that people know. I work in a shipyard, you know, you walked in the road. You've done that. I mean, everybody's done that. That's right, the bonnet on the side, and a wee bit red lead in the top here. A wee bit paint, you know. That was you walking in the corner, you've done it, you know. Even though you never done any work. This was you coming out of that yard, you're a big shot, you know.
They're born with all these blinking, all the
cranes and everything.
all above them, and they're born there, and they got run down to the gate when they're 4 and 5 and 6, and they meet their father coming out on a Friday night and get a couple of copers after them. I mean, all the kids used to go down there and meet their father coming out of shipyards, and that was in their hearts. They want to go in these shipyards and give pennies to their kids when they go in. I mean, their fathers done it before them. It's a thing. It's the Clyde built Glasgow, and Glasgow built the Clyde, and what was made out of the Clyde was these shipyards, and that gave us our living. And that's what we're looking for anew, is the same living as our grandfathers and our fathers and all that go before us.
I've been away for government quite a few times, but I've always come back. And I don't think I'll ever leave it.
What will happen here if you get the bag here? If you do get...
Falling back at the bag, it'll be the usual story. You'll be hanging about pond closes, eating things off the street, what we've done before.
Betting shops.
Betting shops, try to get a few bob and a drink.
Springing a pint in again.
We'll just need to get through it all again. I hope it never comes, but this is the point. These things can happen. Yes, they can sing round the backs that they've done before and all.
They're trying to take something off us that we think basically doesn't belong to an employer. It belongs to us. Jimmy and George, it belongs to us. I mean, this is the thing, and they're trying to take it off us. I mean, see what Sandy's saying there. Take the likes of this country must have a wealth. Must have a wealth of skilled labour when it can afford to throw the amount of men with a natural inheritance and a natural know-how and knack. I mean, you've worked in it, Gus. Now, some of these lads have been in them yourself, you've seen some of the conditions of what in there. How do you fancy maybe walking in there and say a November morning there, you know, and it's full of fog, cold and all the rest of that. The average bloke outside a shipbuilding, you see, look, they're not industrial maniacs, they're not, these shipyard workers, they're not half cracked. But we accept that, it's one of the hazards of shipbuilding.
You have in West Central Scotland a long industrial history and splendid records of achievement for which the whole of Britain owes you a great deal. None of us can afford to be prisoners of our past. We must not sacrifice the hopes we have of prosperity for the future by being content with just trying to keep things going as they are. If our hopes are to be realized, we have not just to accept change, but to work for it and to welcome it.
You know, you see thistles, heather and that. You know, I never thought I'd ever see that in a birth of my life. It's a sort of sickening feeling. You talk about freshwater salmon up here in the Clyde. Up to Christ, I'll never love to see it. I'd rather go back to the old days, because at that time it was full employment, you know, we're all working. Politics didn't run my life, you know, but as you get older and you look at what's going on round about you, you start reading papers and you begin to get a wee bit annoyed, you know, you say, wait a minute, I've been getting kidded on all my life, it's about time I try to help, you know, in some way. Great respect for them who's got politics, because you've got to have it. So I think we realise you've got to have it. But what I've no time for is that when people start counting other people as numbers, then I'm against them. I'm definitely against them. You've got to look at everything on the human side, I think. not right that I should have to move my whole life because of certain people say that I've not got the right to work. No, that's not right. I mean, I've never had any inclination to leave Glasgow. I mean, I always liked it here, you know. It's my whole life. It's a great place. A lot of other people don't like Glasgow. Okay, that's their prerogative, but I think Glasgow's a great place. And I'll not leave it. You know. And I'll never leave it. I'll fight for it.
Think you'll win?
Easy.
Get in with a boot. Never mind wasting any more
big
time.
working
with it.
boot.
Aye.
We have to create new opportunities and new jobs.
I never served a 5-year apprenticeship to end up in the British Railways waving a wee flag at Central Station.
It's easy to put your finger on the trouble where it is, isn't it?
I know, it's the government. We know it's the government.
I believe that out of the anguish and the disappointment of these last few years, there can emerge in Scotland a great modern industrial area.
Wait a minute. Let me stress my point here.